Hello to everyone who's joining our webinar. So I'm Jamie Steele. I'm the CEO of Pacifictech. So we're focusing on today is extending the power of the Pacifictech connected services for Sage 300. So just a little bit of background about our company. So we're a Sage Tech partner, but we've been providing solutions to Sage customers for over 25 years. And we're just focusing on providing some tier one capability to the Sage solutions. And we've got over 3,000 customers around the world that use our solutions. So yeah, we've really focused on the workflow areas and the procure to pay area, and then AP automation as well. So those are our real focuses. And we are a Sage Select Tech partner, so we work with just Sage 300 and Sage Intacct. They're the only two ERPs that we work with. Then below there, we've a truly global ISV, and we've listed some of the awards that we've won over the years. So we won't go through each of those, but certainly from different regions, we've had some good feedback and great relationships with business partners and end users. Then you can see the icon and the graphic in the bottom right, ISO 27001 certified. So we've had that certification for a few years now, so that just shows the level of processes and security that we've got in place. Right, so this next diagram shows our processing hubs. So we've got processing hubs in 4 places around the world. So starting in the bottom right there in Hamilton in New Zealand, then also in Melbourne in Australia, Johannesburg in South Africa, and then Toronto in Canada. So this is where we've got servers, numerous servers and SANs sitting in some high-end data centers, so top tier 1 data centers, and these provide our connected services. Okay, so this next diagram shows our workflow solution. So you can see the Sage modules along the bottom there, or the main Sage 300 areas. And across the middle row are our workflow modules. So we've got purchasing workflow is the first one. That's the whole procurement process. Then in the middle is payables workflow, which is the AP automation solution. And then on the right-hand side is workflow notifications. So this module provides workflows for 22 different entities within Sage 300. So when we say an entity, a customer master file is one entity, a vendor master file is another entity, the general ledger general ledger account codes is another entity. So those are master file entities. And then we've also got general ledger journal entries, AP payments, AR credits, IC adjustments. So sort of all those main transactions where people can perpetrate a fraud. That's where we've got a workflow in place. And below that is workflow documents module. So this is where you can attach documents to our workflow modules. So you can attach quotes for requisitions, you can attach supplier invoices to the AP automation. And then on the workflow notifications, you can attach documents to customers and to vendors. So if a customer is increasing their credit limit and you've got a PDF to support that, you can attach that to the customer master file. So up above there is PW Web. So for a workflow solution, you're really always going to want managers to be able to do approvals through a web browser. So that's where we've got our PW Web connected service. Okay, this next infographic is showing the P2P, procure to pay. So the whole end-to-end procure to pay. This is the 6 columns apply to most ERPs. You've got your master data, then your requisitions, they create purchase orders, then you do a receipt, then a supplier invoice, and then a payment. So we've got you can see on this middle row, we've got workflows across 5 of those. receiving, we can block over receiving. So really controls across the whole procure to pay process. This next diagram, this is, whoops, sorry, I'm jumping ahead a bit there. So this is now just looking at purchasing workflow suite itself. Won't spend too much time on this because we're really just wanting to focus on the connected services, but just a few key points. You can see again the Sage modules in green and our modules in blue. You can see project and job costing there. So all of our modules are tightly integrated in with all of the Sage modules. So PO, AP, GL, IC, but also project and job costing. So we've got a lot of customers that use PJC. And these are the different parts of our purchasing workflow suite. And on the left-hand side, funds availability, which is the real-time GL budget checking. And then up the top there is PW Web, which is the connected service for the web approvals. All right, now this next diagram is quite important. So this is showing how PW Web connects to Sage 300. So you can see on the right-hand side is Sage 300. So that's sitting in wherever servers that your client has it located. And then, so they can be in their own offices or in a data center. Then to the left of that is our servers running in a server farm in a processing hub. And so what we're doing, if someone does a requisition using our browser, that's connecting to our software on our servers and the processing hub, and that's connecting through to Sage 300 in real time. So that's very important. It's real-time connectivity. We're not sort of caching the data out here. We cache some master data to speed up the process, but from a transactional point of view, the transactions are pushed straight through to Sage 300. And all the heavy lifting, like the workflow design and the routing of transactions through the workflow is all done on the Sage 300 server, and so is the emailing. So really it's a portal to Sage 300. So so really, Sage 300's a key part of it. And so that if a requisition's put in, goes into the approval process, an email sent out to this manager down here, they can then come and do their approval through the browser or through a smartphone app. And once they do that approval, it connects through and updates Sage 300 and moves it along in real time. Right, so that's the real-time connectivity. And another thing is just this, you just need one land pack for every 50 requisitioners and approvers. So that makes our solution very much more cost effective. So I hope you can hear me. I just got some message about my phone disconnecting, but let's hope it's going all right. Linda, can you hear me all right? If you could just put that in the chat.
Yes, Jamie, all good.
Oh, great, thanks. One land pack for every 50 requisitioners or approvers, so that makes the solution very cost effective. Now, we've also got web screens available, so we've put in a huge amount of investment into web screens, like a lot of the other Sage 300 ISVs. We think that's a fantastic area. So I mean, we've had our PW Web connected service for about 15 years, but we've still invested in the web screen. So we think for some cases, web screens are a better solution, but you do need to be conscious that you need more land packs. So if you're rolling out a purchasing system to 200 or 300 people, and 50 log in at once, you're going to need 50 land packs. Whereas with our solution, you'd need, if I said 200 divided by 50, you'd need 4 land packs rather than 50 land packs. So our connected service, still has a really big cost advantage for some clients compared to web screens. All right, I think probably this slide, we've covered quite a lot of it, which can show you what the features are of PW Web. It's very easy to deploy and use, as with any browser. application. I think a key thing as well, we're taking care of the security side of things. That's a difference. So with web screens, the client or the business partner needs to worry or deal with all the security side of things. With our connected services, we're looking after the security, and we've got the team, quite a number of engineers that just work on this IT security constantly. All right. So yeah, and then multiple web servers, redundancy. So that's all, and server monitoring. That's all built into our solution. Right, so we've got a couple of screenshots here. So we will just, instead of looking at screenshots, we'll hop in and have a look at the software itself. So anyway, there's the requisition entry screen and the approval console. So let's just hop in and have a look at PWWeb. So what I'll do is log in as someone called Requisitioner. And a couple of key points. So the graphic here has got our graphic, but clients can change that to their own graphic. So it's, suits their logo. And then when we click login, oh, just made some little typo there. So we'll just go through it quickly in terms of what is the breadth of the solution. As I said, we've had PWWeb available for 15 years, and we've had really good customer base around the world. So we've just added more and more functionality to it. So you can see the different menus. So we've got our approval consoles, then we've got all our different transaction screens. We've got our inquiry screens, reallocations and substitutions. So this is if people go away on annual leave, they can put in a substitution and the system will automatically reroute transactions when that manager's away. Reallocation is more if a person is on sick leave and something is already sitting with them, but it needs to be pushed through quickly, so someone can reallocate it to another manager for an approval. Then we've got our profile, so that's where the users can just tailor the system to just work a bit more or effectively, or default different values for them. And then we've got the admin menu. So this gives the business partner a lot of functionality to tailor the solution. So you can change field captions, you can hide fields, you can change the menus, you can turn on multi-factor authentication. So yes, a lot of functionality in there as well. And if we just look at the approval consoles, you can see there's 3 approval consoles. So I'm logged in as the requisitioner, so they won't have any approvals because they're a requisitioner. So we'll come and look at that in a few minutes with an approver. So if we look at the transaction, so we can do a requisition. We've got some of the IC transfers of Sage IC. Then we've got a PO receipt, and we can do a punch out requisition as well. So that's where the user here will click on punch out, and that will then take them across to a vendor's website. So here we've got Arrow uniforms and Office Max. So it will take them across to that company's web store. They can do their shopping, and instead of checking out and putting in a credit card, it then returns that card back to PWWeb to go through an approval process. We've got this working with Amazon Business as well, so we've got quite a good number of users utilising Punch Out in that space. Then we've got PO change orders. So if someone does a requisition, creates purchase order, then they want to change it, they can go through the change order process. And so that's quite a sort of lot of functionality we've got available there. I guess the key point, what we're trying to do here is these functions that make sense to be done out in the field. These are what we're providing through the PW Web solution. Then we've got invoice entry, so that's where staff can put in expenses as what is the normal case where that's used. We do have some clients where they actually have invoice entry, where they have lots of different small locations in different parts of the country. Then they can use that invoice entry. And we can create purchase orders and then the internal issues transactions as well, which we call IF. Right, so what I should do is and then if we just look at the inquiries, we've got a management inquiry, so that's where someone can look at all the requisitions that they've got access to. So you can come into my requisitions, so someone can just look at their own requisitions. And then we've got date filters set up to just restrict how far back that goes. We can do purchase order inquiries, so we can choose just for a certain vendor to look at all the purchase orders. We can look up receipts, and then we've got our funds availability inquiries as well. So this is where we can have a look at how we're tracking against budget. So we can look at, here is this cost center, which is marketing. We can see all the geocodes that belong to marketing. We can see the budget and the actuals and the commitments, and then what's available to spend. So for some schools and universities, they provide this to the lecturers or the teachers so they can get that visibility of how much budget they've got available. And then we can also look up invoices. We can look up supplier and just invoices that person has entered, but a much more common one is management inquiry. So this is where a person can look up all the invoices for a certain vendor, but this is, again, it's always limited to their cost centers that they've got access to. So here we can see here are 2 invoices. And so, manager, they might have approved this invoice a month ago, and now they're just wanting to have a look at the details again, so they can just come in and open up those invoices, look at the actual invoice image, etc. So that's probably one of the most commonly used inquiry screens. Right, so yes, I think that's probably enough of just an explanation. Probably let's just do one requisition very quickly, just to show that it does get pushed into Sage 300 immediately. So we need to choose our workflow. So every requisition needs a workflow and a cost center. You can see it's got job related here. So if we tick that, it enables all the PJC fields. And we'll choose a template here. So we'll say conference in Brisbane. And so the template's brought 3 lines onto the screen for us. We've got some airfares. So let's say 2 airfares at $400 each. And we'll have some accommodation. So it's defaulted a vendor for us. It's defaulted an item and a vendor. So we've got a lot of defaulting happening to try and make it easier for the users. They can change things if you want them to. You can see it's got the general ledger code here as well. So it's building the GL code automatically. I'll just delete that row, and I can come and attach my supplier quotes as well. Right, so if we're happy with that requisition, we click submit. And so what our connected service is now doing is pushing that transaction into Sage 300. So you can see requisition number 31. So now if we come and have a look at our Sage 300 system, if I come into management inquiry, so under purchasing workflow here, management inquiry, in process, you can see number 31. So all of those details are here. So yeah, the fact it's entered within PW Web is no different to if it was entered within the Sage desktop. So it's very much like portal to the Sage 300 system. All right, so that was just showing that it is real time, and so now what I'll do is just log in as a manager and to just show you some of the approval screens. So you can see for our 3 different workflow modules, each one has got an approval screen. So here's purchasing approval. So this would be showing the requisitions that have been routed to this manager. So here you can see number 31 which is the one I just did as the requisitioner. So we can open that up and look at the details. We can look at the funds availability, so do the budget checking. We can look at the documents that are attached. It just opens them up in another tab. We can also open it, or we can edit it. So if we've got rights to edit it, the $ is the funds availability, and then we've got the quick review. So quick review is something we've had on the payables workflow, the AP automation side, and we've brought that into the purchasing side as well recently. Right, so that's showing the requisitions. Now, if we want to look at supplier invoices, then they are on this screen here. So you can see we've got PO invoices, AP invoices. Again, we've got the quick review, so we can click on this and that'll open up the transaction data on the left-hand side and the PDF on the right-hand side. And the manager can approve it from there. They can go approve or decline or leave it in pending format. Right, and then so that's the second one, and then the third one is workflow notifications, which is the 22 different entities. So I don't have any approval set up here, but if I was approving some payments or approving a new vendor or approving a change to a vendor or approving a general ledger journal entry, then those would all show up in this screen here. I might just, if I try logging in as controller. Whoops. I think controller has got some WN approvals there. Yeah, so here it shows you in a tree view. So here you can see under accounts payable, there's 3 vendors to be approved. They're all alterations. So they're an existing vendor that's being changed. And then we've got our 1 AR customer. Again, that's an alteration. So if we come and look at the vendors, if we look at 1200, if we click on that button, it now opens up and shows us what's being changed. So someone is trying to change the group from MIS to INV. And if we look at the event log, we can see who's done that. So it was actually the controller. So in this case, it's come to them for an approval, which is obviously not a very good design of the workflow. And our workflow can prevent that from happening as well. All right, so that's really just showing the different approvals. So I think, yes, we've talked about the transactions, we've talked about the inquiries, and we've talked about the approvals. So I think we've covered all of the menus within PW Web. So the next area, no, we'll come back to the smartphone side of things. All right, so now if we go back to our PowerPoint. So now we move into the AP automation, and so you can see on the right-hand side is the Sage 300 modules, accounts payable, purchase orders. In the dark blue hexagon are our workflow modules. In this case, payables workflow, workflow notifications. So that's sitting within the Sage 300 desktop. So again, as I've said before, all the configuration, all the authority levels and the delegated authorities are all set up within the desktop module. And over here on the left-hand side are our connected services. So we've talked about PW Web. That's what I was just showing you just now. So that's the browser approvals. Pacifictech GO is the smartphone app, and we'll come to that in a few minutes. The other connected service is a DPS, and so that's the one I was just wanting to talk about for a few minutes now. So this is DPS stands for Document Processing Service. So this is where invoices come in through the PDFs get emailed through to the customer's mailbox, or sorry, the Sage 300 site's mailbox. They would then forward that on to a mailbox that we provide, and that's where the data extraction is carried out, and the data extraction and the creation of a transaction within our payables workflow, and that's creating it as a draft invoice. So the system, you can see down here, so AP, instead of doing the data entry, AP's job now changes. The system's capturing most of the data, or all of the data. So now AP now need to review what the system has captured. They can make changes to it if something hasn't been captured correctly, and then they can then submit it into the approval process. So yes, that's where those are the functions that AP will now carry out. Right, so that's the DPS, Document Processing Service. So that's another one of our connected services. And so we've had that working with PDFs since about 2018. So that's about 8 years now. Yeah, got a really good number of customers that are using that solution in most regions around the world. The next part of that, which I think a lot of you have probably heard a bit about lately, is e-invoicing using the PEPAL format. So we've got a few slides on that coming up shortly, so we'll cover that there. All right, so that's, the DPS, just to re-emphasize, DPS is the Document Processing Service. Right, and just we do have some what we call touchless processing. So this is applicable only for certain types of industries, but we've got some clients where an invoice can travel through this whole process, and the vendor is trained and it ends up in the DPS console, and we have an automation where that can then push those invoices through into payables workflow and into the three-way matching. And if they're within tolerance, then they push right through into the AP module. So so we've got some companies doing about, I think, 200 to 250 invoices a day, where they're coming in, going through this whole process and passing all the checks and balances without any person touching them. So delivering really major benefits in terms of staff savings. Right, so just in terms of, we'll now do a quick demo. So really, I think just the key thing we wanted to focus on is if we come here to payables workflow. So now, because this is the AP automation, so again, we've got our setup. So this is where you set up your delegated authorities and your users and your workflows. You can have multiple workflows. Each workflow can have multiple steps. We've got approval groups. So that's the setup. Then you can enter the transactions manually. So you can either enter an AP invoice or a PO invoice. If we just look at the AP invoice, here's an invoice that was entered. So it's very much like the Sage screens, but we've got a couple of differences. We've got a workflow and a cost center. So every invoice has to have a workflow and a cost center. We've then got workflow documents tab. So this is where the PDF is saved. So it's saved with the transaction. And then we've got the event log. So this is where you can see the history of who's approved the invoice. And so we get a lot of feedback from our customers, from the accounting staff and from the auditors. So when this flows all the way through to the general ledger, the accounting team can just drill from the general ledger, drill a few times and get back to the same screen, and they can then look at the PDF and they can look at who did the approval. So it's really all that information is just contained within Sage 300. So if we just look at the connected service, which is our which is the document processing service. So what we've got is something called the DPS console. So this is the landing page for where the invoices come into the system. So you can see here, in this case, we've got 5 invoices. So this is the landing page for AP to work with these invoices. So you can see we've got some PO invoices and some AP invoices. If we focus on this one here, it's an AP invoice from this vendor, 2800. It's worked out the workflow and the cost center and the date and the dollar value. You can see these PO ones up here. They've actually got a PO number and a receipt number. So if we just double click on that, I'll come over here. If we double click, it'll open up the details. So now you can see over here on the right hand side is their supplier's PDF. Here's the purchase order number. So what the system has done, when it came in, it read all of this information. Well, read the GST number, that tells it who the vendor is. Then it looks up whether that purchase order is open, and if there's any open receipts, and if there is, it will populate that automatically. So it's doing a lot of that work as the invoice comes into the DPS console. If we just come back to this AP invoice, that doesn't have a purchase order number because that's not relevant for an AP invoice. But here the same screen's very similar. Here's the PDF, and over here on the left-hand side is the data that is captured. AP review that. If they're happy with all that, they click on process. That takes them through to the next screen, what we call the second screen, which is the payables workflow AP invoice entry screen. There it's brought in all the GL codes from the vendor master file. It can use distribution sets if they are set up as well. So all of these settings from AP are utilised by our module because it's so tightly integrated. And it's also attached the PDF as well. So that saves AP another job. So yeah, so AP staff just save a lot of time with this solution. And so now we're happy with it. So we now submit that into the approval process, and we can now see who it's gone to. So it's gone to the division manager. It's now sitting on their PW web, ready for them to approve it. So we now close that, come back here, it's completed. We click refresh, and now that one's gone off the screen because it's traveling through the approval process. All right, so that's just, I think that's the best way to illustrate the DPS console. So the work is all sort of done between the emailing, the data extraction, and then our system creates the draft invoice within here. All right, so that was what we wanted to look at here. So now just moving along into Pacifictech GO, which is our smartphone app. So that's, you can see some screenshots there. We'll log in and have a look very shortly. So it's available for Apple phones and Android phones. So you download it from the Play Store. We've included a few months ago biometrics and pins, so you can do thumbprints and facial scans, and we've got pin numbers. Something else we're just releasing today, or which should get out to the stores in the next few days, is badges and notifications. So that'll be something we've had a number of people ask for. So on your smartphone, you'll get a little badge and a notification when you've got a new approval. So that's something we've put quite a lot of work into getting that up and running. So it's great that we've got that now available. All right, so we'll show you what that looks like just really quickly. So we'll show you in a browser what it looks like. Just make it a bit smaller, like a normal browser. And so it shows our companies again from say 300. And so now it's gathering the information about how many approvals this user's got. You can see they've got one purchase order transaction to approve. They've got 2 AP invoices and 1 PO invoice. If we look at the 2 AP invoices, it's now showing us here the invoice number, showing us how many attachments and who the vendor is and the dollar value. If we want more information, we click on the arrow. It'll now show us the lines. Oh, we've got this little bug. This is something that's just on my demo system, and that'll be getting fixed up in this new update that's coming out in the next 24 to 48 hours. So then we can look at each line. So here we've only got one line. So we can just, we've got these collapsing panels. We can look at the event log to see who submitted it and who's already approved it. And then we can look at the workflow documents. If we had an attachment, that would show up there. And if we're happy with that, we click on the green tick and say that's all good, and then submit it. And while it's going green, that's while it's pushing the message through to Sage 300 to move that transaction along through the approval process. And then if we come back here, so we've now, that's gone from 2 down to 1, whichever line it was. I think it was AP invoices. All right, so that's Pacifictech GO, which is the smartphone app, which is a connected service. So the pricing for Pacifictech GO and PW Web, well, in fact, all our connected services, they just count as interactions. So I guess, well, one new term is tokens that is being used in the AI world. And interaction, same sort of thing. It's just like, you know, each time you carry out a certain event within PW Web or Pacifictech GO smartphone app, that counts as an interaction, and our pricing is based in tiers of interactions. All right, so the next area that we wanted to cover, which is one that we've been working on quite heavily for the last few months, is e-invoicing. So I think probably again a lot of you are getting quite familiar with this, but so PEPAL is this is the format that's being used in most European countries, and Singapore and Malaysia and Australia and New Zealand. So PEPAL is the only format that we work with. There's other formats out there, but yeah, PEPAL seems to be the one that's getting the most traction around the world. So we've been working with Belgium. Belgium went all business-to-business transactions in Belgium have to go through e-invoicing starting from January of this year, so almost 6 months ago. So we've got a number of customers in Belgium that are using our e-invoicing solution. So just some real, what I should just touch on, yeah, so our solutions work for Australia and New Zealand because they're using what we call, we'll come to the four corner model. Yeah, so maybe we'll come back to that as I cover these areas. So with the invoicing, there's a few different scenarios. So first of all, the four corner model. So you can see that here, this is what's used in Australia, New Zealand, Belgium, UK and Ireland. So it's sort of quite a simple model. So someone sends their e-invoice. So instead of emailing the PDF, they send the e-invoice. So they're sending it to this recipient. So they send it to their access point provider. They then determine who it's going to, and they look up who their access point provider is, and they then send it to that one, which is corner 3. Corner 3 is then responsible for delivering it on to corner 4. So this client might be using Sage 300, or they might be Sage Intacct, or they might be Xero. It doesn't matter, or might, whatever ERP that supports e-invoicing. And then we've got our response messages coming back as well. So that's one of the great things with e-invoicing, as well as sending the transaction. You can actually get messages coming back to say it's been delivered. So that's corner 4. Then we've got corner 5, which is what Singapore's implementing. So we've done a lot of work with our Intacct solution. So we support the 5 corner model for Singapore. We support it for B2B. B2G needs some more development to be done, and we haven't done that yet. So for Intacct B2B, we've got this all working, and you can see the difference here. Corner 5, the tax authority is getting a copy of the invoices, and so that's where, and so a lot of these countries are moving to the 5 corner model. I think France is going live with 5 corner model on the 1st of September, so about 3 months from now, or 2 months. and a lot of European countries are moving to Corner 5 as well. Right, so we will be getting this working for Sage 300 over the next few months for Singapore. Then one other variation, I'm not sure if we've got any business partners from Malaysia that are on the line, but we have had customers running for quite a long time, a year and a half, with Intact in Malaysia. And Malaysia is quite different again. So it's using PEPAL, but it's actually tax clearance. So what that means is that you actually have to notify the LHDN, which is the Malaysian Tax Authority. So you send the invoice to them, they send back an acknowledgement and a GUID, and that's required before the customer can send their invoice out, or before the company can send their invoice out to their customer. All right, so we've got a few diagrams here. This sort of shows the steps with e-invoicing. So with e-invoicing, there's always the sending and the receiving. Well, Malaysia is an exception to that, but Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Belgium, you always need to think of the sending out of invoices and the receiving of invoices. So I won't go into, we don't really have time to go through this too much, but I guess we've designed it to really just operate in the background, so the user doesn't really need to do any extra steps. But one thing that's very important is that you do need our key communications module. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with key communications. That's a module we've had for a number of years. It's really strong. It's emailing documents out of Sage 300 and keeping a log of those and having multiple contacts. So we've enhanced key communications to handle all the e-invoicing. So instead of emailing it, where you can email to some customers and they invoice through to other customers. So that's just one key point for sending. You need to have the key communications desktop module and then our e-invoicing connected service. Right, and then on the receiving side of things, so you can see here, we've already talked about the DPS in terms of PDFs. So our same DPS system is used for e-invoices that are coming in. So they're really very similar in terms of, the same data. The thing with an e-invoice is structured in a JSON file, so it's much easier to work with compared to a PDF. And so this is supported by us with our AP automation. So this is supported for Australia, New Zealand, Belgium, or any countries with four corners, so UK and Ireland. So in terms of Singapore and Malaysia, we've got a lot of this is in place, but we just need to do a bit more work over the next couple of months to support those two countries on the inbound side. And just one point that some people have mentioned in terms of, I think the Sage invoicing solutions, they only handle inbound AP invoices, not PO invoices. Our solution handles both AP and PO invoices. So it's a differentiator there. All right, so that's just a quick look through. I mean, if any of you are interested in our e-invoicing, then we can have a demo and show you how it works. So certainly more than happy to do that. Right, so that's really, I think, the main connected services that we just have wanted to just give you updates. So I think, some of you are familiar with some of the connected services. So hopefully now you're more familiar with all of the connected services. Also, we've been adding lots of features to the connected services. So, and also like our smartphone app, Pacifictech GO, we've been adding quite a bit more functionality there as well. Here we've just got a bit of a list of our modules. I think we've probably touched on a lot of those already. I think we've covered most of them, except Audit Logger. I think almost every business partner is familiar with Audit Logger, which is our solution that's been around for a long time. All right, so I think that's really the key areas I was wanting to cover. Thanks everyone for your time, and yeah, let us know if we can help out at all.